I want to say to you, like, honestly and vulnerably, truthfully, when it comes to the crying, I had to address the fact that, like, I was really sad about a breakup with my brother, basically. Like, it's weird, but I had to address that this morning, even. And it's in the sense that, like, I've been podcasting, about early childhood sexual abuse and the fact that I had my brother arrested due to the abuse and all that kind of stuff. And I also had to kind of, like, face the mirror and realize that I was still scared to tell my story. Like, I posted an episode and then I couldn't sleep. And I was like, why can't you sleep? And I'm like, oh, you say that you're able to talk about it and that you're healed enough to talk about it, but it's like, oh, you still somehow have a layer of shame there. It's still there somewhere. Because, like, why aren't you, why are you scared? Why is the fear there?
Welcome to Loving Kindness Every Day, where you will hear everyday language such as 4-letter, 5-letter, or words that your mother might call profanity. Please be advised.
My heart was racing. Like, it was really racing. Like, my heart was, like, beating so fast after editing that first part. Like, I felt like I had to do a lot of deep breathing. I want you guys to recognize that this is not easy, but it's necessary. So I'm just gonna breathe. We're just gonna do it. So that was your trigger warning. Hello. Today's a new day. My name is Kindness Calloway. This is Loving Kindness Every Day. Welcome. In the background, there will not be music playing the whole time. I know you guys all don't like that. Well, like, not everybody likes that. I understand. But for this intro, it's going to be here because I like it and this is my show. So, welcome. Today's episode basically is just a conversation with my ex-girlfriend. I hadn't talked to her in quite a long time, and I had never talked to her at all about this subject line, so I filled her in and you as well. So here we are. This is vulnerable as hell. Let's go.
Wait, don't forget.
Oh yeah, and a super big thank you to Kathleen Wessel, who invited me to Spelman College for a dance performance when I recorded this audio. This kind of music that's playing in the background. So the girls danced. Well, excuse me, the people danced, because there was lots of different people dancing. And it was beautiful. Wow.
Really nice.
Yeah. It blessed me.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to Spelman College.
Anyway, that's all I have to say. Let's get to the show.
Shout out to Spelman College Dance Department.
Call anything that sticks out as something that would be any different between me and my brother. You guys just kind of just interacted like a normal brother and sister dynamic, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate your honesty about that, especially about the uncomfortable part. I'm gonna validate that feeling, but I suppose, did you feel that, like, were you ever alone with him and felt uncomfortable?
Let me think.
Were you ever alone with him at all? I don't know.
I don't think so. Like, I can't recall, like, a moment of ever being alone with him. I mean, I feel like you were always, if anything, it would just be momentary, like maybe you were out of the room for a bit, but no, I didn't spend any, like, one time with him. It was just, you know how sometimes you meet somebody and you just are unsure of, it's like a more of an instinctual thing. not sure how you feel, and for some reason your guard is automatically up. I don't know if that you can relate with that. I sometimes have instances like that when I meet people, and I just remember having that feeling meeting your brother.
Yeah, I can relate with that. Um, Out of respect to you, I'm just gonna jump in the deep end. Okay, here we go.
Okay, go
All
for it.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, like basically when I moved to Atlanta, I moved to Atlanta in like February 2022, and when I moved to
Okay.
Atlanta, I started experiencing like really bad like CPTSD from the sexual abuse that I had with my brother, and
Okay.
basically, I want to say between ages like I say it this way because like it started before I can remember. It was like my first memory. Like literally, my first memory is like him and I together, like him abusing
Okay.
me, basically, like legitimately. And so like the memory that I had in order to like spare you from the graphic details is like too advanced for like that to be the first time, if you get me.
Got you. Got
So
you.
so it's like I started experiencing really bad sort of symptoms and like experiences I think around the age that I was when my daughter was that age, if you get me. So it's like my daughter
Okay.
turned like she had just turned 2 in February, and so like around like March, um, around like yeah February March, like I just started having like really invasive sort of like much more graphic memories, and before that I had tried maybe like 3 times over to address it like with the family. The first time was when I was 15, and sort of like this sort of coincidental synchronicity sort of story like with your dad. Here I am on this like one-off trip with my mom to like Orlando. We go to like Disney World or something. Like we didn't go to the park, but like whatever. We go to that area. And we go to this church, and at the church this guy calls me out and basically like prophesies to me and says like these things about me and my life. And one of the things he says stands out to my mom big time because it like talks about math, and like at the time I was like really bad at math. And he talks about how good I'm gonna be at math, and then he says like, oh, there's something that you need to tell your mom that you've been like hiding from her or something like that. He says something very like revealing like that. And
Mhm.
only a month before that, I had told my aunt Nanette for the first time like about it. Like I had been kind of like able to speak and be like, this thing happened with my brother, but it was like still super vague, but it's kind of like he did something bad, and like all these kind of things or whatever. And so she's like, you have to tell your mom. And I really didn't want to, because I felt like, I don't know, like I was gonna get in trouble or something.
Yeah.
And like, so then now like a month later, after having that conversation with my aunt, there I am in Disney or whatever. This guy says that thing. We get into the car, and straight away my mom's talking about it because of the math thing. Because like at the time, like maybe I'm like fucking probably get like passing math with like a D. Like it's like I was like really bad at math. It was like wild. The math thing was like a big deal. So it was like straight away
Okay.
we get into the car, and she's on about the math and about how God says I'm gonna be good at it, and also about the thing that I'm supposed to tell her or whatever. And so
Yeah.
like I know what the thing is, and I really don't want to tell her. And so then I like kind of let her talk about the math for a while. We go home, and I sort of sweep it under the rug, and I can't sleep that night. I wake up in the middle of the night, and it's kind of like God like telling me like tell her, tell her, tell her. And so then I
Mhm.
do, and we kind of have this moment where you know, I realize in my mom's defense, this is typical. This is something that happens. I didn't know this at the time, and I didn't know this for over a decade, but this is kind of like typical abuse victim sort of treatment where you're at first like really accepted and believed and loved, and then like everybody turns against you. So like,
Yeah.
like that's what happened. And so it's like we have like a lovely magical week, and then we go home, and my brother starts spinning his lies, and then it's like literally not until after the fire does it ever come up again.
And okay.
So after the fire, it becomes significant because we end up living together a little bit, and then I move out. Remember, we broke up. I move out, and I go and actually live with my brother. So now
Okay.
here I am, first time like an adult, still having dealt with none of this. I had this argument with my mom after you and I broke up, and it's what kind of made me realize like certain things. And it was silly because it was actually about pizza. Like it was
Was
like,
about pizza?
yeah, literally, like she says to me, okay, she's like, I'm gonna order pizza. Like this is literally after we break up, so I'm all like in breakup mode. We're out. She's like, we're gonna go to the beach. She's like, we're gonna come home. She's like, come home. We're gonna go to the beach, and like it'll be fine. And my mom was all like, my brother had told me that my mom didn't like want to go to our apartment at one time because she called it like the den of iniquity. Like she was all like super,
Yeah.
yeah, or she was all like really wild, So she's all like, come home, be straight, whatever. I don't know. So she's all on that shit. She's all
I figured. I honestly figured. I was going to ask you, like, what your mom's response was to the breakup, but I kind of had a feeling that was going to be it.
Legitimately, a lot of that, It was really soft. It wasn't hardcore heavy, but it was really softly like, yeah, Jesus, Bible, everything will be fine, and, like, this is what was meant to be, that kind of thing, right? So,
Yeah.
So here I am, and we're that, and she's doing that out on the beach. Actually, interesting little story. Side note, do you know the Champagne Tower that went down in Miami? Did you ever hear about that?
Say it again? The Champagne.
It's called like the Champagne Tower. You'll Google it after our conversation, but it's interesting because it literally happens next door to the place where we have this conversation, this argument, this fight.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's actually kind of a sad story because like so many people died in it. It was almost like freaking like. Anyway, I'm gonna send you the information about it. It was crazy. Like the whole tower goes down. It's like a massive thing. Like literally next door to this place where we have this argument. Because my mom used to go there all the time. It's called like the Blue Green. So it was like her place. I knew that's where we were going. Blah blah blah. So we go there. We go there, and so she's all like, one night, yeah, we're gonna have pizza. All right, cool. What do you want on your pizza? Now, interesting story, a note about your dad as well. Because of one of his friends, I love onion and pineapple pizza. It's my thing still, forever. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's my thing. So I love
pineapple pizza.
Onion and pineapple together.
I like mushroom and pineapple, so that not too far off.
That could be nice. One night your dad had one of his friends over, and they ordered pizza, and he had onion and pineapple. It was my first time ever having it, and I really liked it. And I was like, this is my jam forever, and it still is. Legitimately. That's a true story. So here I am. I was like, I want onion and pineapple on my half because we're going to split a pizza. I want my half with onion and pineapple. She wants her half with green peppers. She says, okay, what do you want? I say it. She goes, ew. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. You're not going to eat it. It doesn't matter. I maybe walk away or something. The pizza comes and she doesn't get onion and pineapple. She decides to get onion and green pepper. And I don't like green pepper. And she gets green pepper on her half and onion and green pepper on my half because pineapple doesn't sound good to her.
Gotcha.
And I flip out. I'm pissed off, hardcore. And we end up having this really bad argument. And it ends up with me locking myself inside of a bathroom while she's outside screaming and yelling at me like a banshee. And I had this moment and I was like, oh shit, that's you. This is you. You're mirroring that. This is literally what you were doing. You were literally doing this and you hate it. You became her.
Oh.
That.
Wow. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And so I had to face it. I had to face it in the mirror and I was like, oh shit. I said, this, they say oh, you become sometimes your parents or what you hate or whatever. And I was like, you did it. I was like, there you go. Congratulations. So I had to kind of face that in the mirror, honestly, Sarah. And so then at the same time, going back to it, I'm living with my brother. So I end up, we have that argument. I end up then going back to DC. I'm there briefly. I pick up my things. I pick up the car. I drive home. After that argument happened, I drive then back home. We say our goodbyes. I drive at the train station. I drive home and I go back to Miami. So now I'm living with my brother. And this is now still that same sort of mentality where one night him and I are smoking, hanging out in the bedroom, and he comes to me and he's all like, yeah, mom thinks that you're gay because of me and what I did to you when we were kids. And I was
that's heavy.
Yeah, that. And so I couldn't even so now I'm coming out of my most you were my most significant intimate relationship at the time. So now I'm coming out of that and in your own words something was there but it was vague and you couldn't even put your finger on it.
Yeah.
So I can't even address that with him. I don't even have the bandwidth or
the emotional intelligence or the mental tools to have this conversation with him. All I can actually say and recognize and know is that I'm not gay because of it, but the rest of it I can't even address.
I mean, yeah, that's like a heavy statement to just like, throw out there. So,
and then it ends.
I don't know how I would react.
I don't even know what I said. I just know, I think I said something like, that's like, I defended sort of like the gay thing because I was still on my heels about that, just coming out of that whole sort of environment and knowing where I was at with that, with them, not for myself, but with them. And then I get this weird cryptic apology where he's basically like, and I'm sorry for everything that happened or something. And then like it doesn't come up again. And it doesn't come up again because mostly like I'm not even able to mentally, like I still don't even want to address it. I'm still in like denial, like I'm just not even there. I can't even like I'm trying to deal with the breakup. I'm trying to move on with my life. I had the fire. I was like, I don't have time.
There's a lot.
It's just too much. I just moved to a new city. I'm trying to do school. I can't with this right now. This is like a whole lifetime breakdown. Like I need to spend a year out of my life processing this. What the fuck? Like no. No. So it's like it doesn't come up, right? So like nothing, right? And so what happens is one day my brother goes and hangs out with one of his friends and his friend's mom, and he decides to get really kind of jealous about his friend's mom and their relationship. And he's basically decides that like he wants our mom to be better, and he's going to have this conversation with her about it, and he's going to sit her down and he's going to tell her about how she needs to do this, that, and the next thing, it needs to be better. And sort of ropes me in on it. I'm not like really part of the conversation, but I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him lecture her about being a mother or whatever.
Okay.
And so then her response is, well, something about like something like some sort of a defense to her mothering, and then but also like you raped your sister. So like let's just talk about that instead. Like I got used as like their cannon fodder for their argument between each other.
That is terrible. I'm sorry.
So this is now like the second time that we have this is our second time addressing this as a family. So now we're at time number 2, and that's the context of that conversation. And this is how that goes. Me again, I retreat into a dark mental wall of space and time, and I don't even know where I went. Yeah. I just went out there doing wild things. I was just out here being wild, just in response to that. Now fast forward to 2017, you find me living in Ireland. I got into a marriage. And I'm sort of running away maybe from them and everything, and I'm in another country, and I've been there for now a couple of years, and I'm starting to sort of like get back into like my spirituality and sort of like processing things and kind of this sort of thing, and I start to have these kind of like maybe dreams or visions, and I'm sort of like again having like these kind of like flashback memories of everything. And now I'm at the point where I can like give myself the permission to write it down and not feel shame and stuff like that. So like I'm writing all these things down, and I wrote this like really graphic sort of very detailed account of like my very first memory. And it was a significant memory where I knew everybody would remember it. It's like one of these memories where everybody has to remember it because it was so different and interesting. And I'll say it like this, like my parents got divorced when I was 4, but this happened before that. It was almost like we went on like this last family final vacation and to Naples or to Marco Island, and there was like a really bad storm, and my parents left, and so like these things proceed to happen after it. But I detail that in the letter, but also at the same time, like it's significant because my mom remembers it as well. Like she remembers the trip, she remembers all these things. And so like we then have once again one of these like coming together conversations where she is, apologizing to me and accepting of me and basically kind of like saying like, I love you and all these kind of like nurturing and all these kind of good things, da da da. And, I'm so sorry that this happened to you, because now like, I suppose she feels it's proof, because she also remembers it. She understands that like, this isn't something that any random 3-year-old, like we have a conversation about it and I say, Mom, like, do you remember this? And she's like, yeah, for sure. 100%. I remember this trip. How old was I, like at that trip? Oh, you couldn't have even been 4. Like you were like 3.5 going on 4. And like, so we have this kind of conversation, right? So then like a week goes by, Sarah, and now it's the first time where I'm kind of like a little bit feeling like empowered and vocal, and I shared this with my partner, and so like this is the first time that my now ex-wife knows about it, and so like we have this my mom then goes and talks to my brother, and like they go out for pizza, and they go to Amici's, and apparently outside of the pizza restaurant, my brother then convinces her like it wasn't that bad and it only happened maybe once, and that I'm like, like sure it happened but not like how she said, and all these kind of things. We're kind of like mitigating everything down to like it wasn't really that big of a deal.
Gotcha.
Sort of a thing. And so then she calls me on this kind of energy. And at this point, I'm really pissed off, and I'm kind of like tired of the whole like yo-yo relationship where it's like if I talk to you, you know what I mean? It's like if I talk to you,
terrible.
You know what I mean? So now I'm like, call him, put him on the phone now, and we're gonna talk about this together. So here I am talking on, because I'm in Ireland, so I'm like talking on my iPad. My spouse at the time is in the background, like, so she can hear the conversation. And she calls him, puts him on 3-way, and he's like, whatever, like, what do you want? I'm at Costco's. And so we proceed to have, this is our third family conversation now about this here in 2017, I'd say 2018, I think, actually, because he was married by then.
Okay.
And so he's basically all on this, like, now it goes down to, like, how many times did it happen? And so we get into this, like, really sort of petty bullshit conversation of where
I'm like, why does that even matter? How many times?
Listen.
Like, one time is too many times.
You are preaching to the choir for sure, because like yes, I think yes, but apparently this is where we were. This is where we were. This is where we were. Yeah, this is where we were. So we get down to this sort of how many times thing. I'm like, every time you freaking went to Bible study and when you were gone all the freaking time, and I'm like once or twice a week. This is happening all the time, regularly. I'm pounding this message home regularly, frequently, often. He's pounding home the message of once or twice in a lifetime, maybe a few times it happened, my bad, not big of a deal. And so we get to this point where I go, well, are you going to tell your wife? He's like, no. And then it ends in some weird, my mom like praying and then like hangs up, and then like the next day sends me some like bullshit Christian like forgive and forget sort of fucking bullshit, to be honest with you. Sorry for all the swearing, but honestly that's what
that is bullshit.
It was just a lot of that. It was a lot of expletives. It was coming out of my mouth after getting that. So
rightfully so.
So then it goes under the rug again until now. Here I am in Atlanta. COVID's now happened. I've had a baby. I wanted to whole home birth and everything. I ended up giving birth after being induced, without like an epidural or anything. I'm like,
oh wow.
I'm like hardcore mothering it. Like this is what I've thrown myself into. Like I was just I was like freaking nursing her until she was almost 2. Like I just threw myself into that. Like that's just I was like, I'm gonna be a mom.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and also I found that it was a coping thing for not dealing with trauma. I just maybe like throwing myself into jobs, and
Yeah.
And so, like, obviously she's my daughter and I love her, and it's something I wanted to do anyway, but it was just also, it was just that that's what I did. That was me, and that's where I put myself at, and that was like my mindset. Now in the background, I'm married to somebody who's a lawyer. I'm also lawyering. I'm also doing, I'm doing like a lot of high level immigration law things and doing all this kind of whatever work stuff as well. Just keeping myself, honestly, Sarah, like really busy, because it's like if I keep myself busy and I'm working and I'm making money makes me feel good. Being a mom makes me feel good. I don't have to think about things that don't make me feel good, like them
Exactly.
and that and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I can
Yeah.
just stay away from Miami, and I actually don't even need to go there at all and think about them. So I can just stay away from them. And so so that's what I do. And here in the background, my spouse is kind of like every once in a while being like, hey, like this whole thing is like fucked up and it's like a really big deal. And like, that he could actually get arrested for this? Because like here I am being alienated from my family for something that they like are like, it's not a big deal and you need to stop talking about it. Where it's like, it's actually such a big deal that like you could go to jail for this.
But also, it's just like the trauma that you're dealing with on top of the trauma of your family minimizing your experience. Like, I'm so sorry. That is just trauma in itself. Lacking that support, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's always been, that's something I've noticed as a theme, and it's always been something I've found dealing with, and I suppose that's why I started our conversation with a thank you to you, because I feel like for so long, like it was like you were that support to me, and like I've found myself in different situations where God gives me people like you to support me through it somehow magically. When I look back on it, I think that was hard and sad, but at the time it doesn't feel so bad, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's where we were at, right? Like that's where we landed. So now there's this really important piece that I left out that is now starting to really bother me. And it's, I don't know, did you ever meet, I probably shouldn't say her name. So there's this person that you may or may not have met, and my brother and her used to date. Her and I were friends like way before you and I met. Like just, I think they dated. I feel like they dated way before you and I met, and like, I feel like that because I remember her and I having conversations on like instant messenger, like literally like old school, AIM, like AIM conversations and stuff like that. And like one night she sends me one of these like AIM messages and is basically like, your brother tried to rape me. And this catches me in the middle of like just denial trauma. I mean, we're probably at like in the timeline, I don't know, I want to say this could have been 2007. Like I just was this maybe 2006. I'm not sure. Like this just wasn't going to be something I could address. I understood, from my side what was happening, but also I could only advocate for her not to be around him. So like she would talk to me about this other guy that she liked, and I would be like, yes, him. Oh, so much him. Tell me about him. He sounds so lovely. Let's go with him. I would just be like, why do you like my brother? Like, why do you want to be around him? I don't get it. Because you actually seem like a lovely person, and you are. So now I'm going to fast forward in the timeline to when my brother and I were living together after the fire, and we're smoking, and he's having these random sort of, I'm sorry that I did this to you kind of conversations with me, right?
Gotcha.
One night, we're having one of these conversations, and I mention it. I mention that old message that I got from her. And I'm like, why did you do that? I'm basically like, why did you do that to her? Like, especially off of the background of, I'm sorry what I did to you. I get this, I'm able to kind of open this window of his personality for a second to be like, why'd you do that to her? And we proceed to then have this conversation where he says to me, he was like basically running around with one of his other friends doing that a lot in Miami, and in his words says to me, over 200 women.
Whoa.
And I just am like, sweet God. And And I know it's him, so I believe him. And I know him enough to believe him, to know that what he's been doing. And like, I also am pairing that up with my trauma, and then I'm like, oh, I can't deal with this at all. And then somehow she sends me an email that he sent to her, and like in the email, literally, Sarah, he says like, oh, it's not that I went out one night and was like, yeah, I'm gonna rape you. It's just that I saw your family and I was jealous, and like I wanted what you had, and so then like I decided to like break you.
So he admitted to this in this email.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he for sure admits to it in the email, and it's like it's like a cryptic apology email, because she is now so upset that she's put her account on the internet, and he wants to like mitigate those circumstances, because like the location that it happened, he's like Mr. Popular Man, and the reason why she didn't actually get raped that night is because somebody that knew him turns the corner. Because he told me this. He said somebody I knew from church came around the corner, and I felt like God was like, like, don't do it or some shit, he said to me.
Oh, God.
And that's like why it didn't end up happening, is because like somebody who knew him turns a corner or something like that. And so like she now is like, processing through her own trauma, and one of the ways that she did it was going on like Live Journal or something and journaling about it publicly. And
wow.
He wants this now off of the internet. So he's like emailing her and being like, it's not that I just decided to rape you, it's just that I'm deep inside a super jealous, horrible person or whatever. I'm not trying to judge him, but that's like whatever. That's basically what he said. Like
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So so now fast forward to like where I'm at again with the baby and everything. I'm now like working from home. I got selected. I'm sitting at working from home.
Jocelyn Vaughn.
And so I'm asking myself these questions like, so God, what is the neurodivergence and what is the trauma?
But you're a master manifester, right?
Yeah, to some degree.
Oh, not to some degree. You're a master manifester. You're manifesting the words of your reality each time. Whenever you say it, it takes root in your reality. Whatever you say in your heart and you believe to be so, like it's out manifesting in your reality. So like that's why today, you had been feeling me on your spirit, but then you didn't do it. You didn't make the phone call or whatever, and that's why today I'm on the phone. I'm literally talking about you, and I'm literally talking about, like, you're actually going to hear this on the podcast. I'm literally talking about how important the work that you're doing was. Actually.
Aww.
No, like for real.
I appreciate that.
Like for real, because like you're literally telling me, like you're in this moment right now, telling me that you had been contemplating whether or not what you were doing was important and whether it was impactful. And literally, before you texted me, no fucking bullshit, I'm on the phone, not even 20 minutes before you texted me, had I been on the phone with Jessica Bradley, literally talking about you. Literally saying...
I believe it, though, because I know the creator is a comedian.
Like, for real. Like, literally saying... literally saying the exact thing that you were asking, was it true or not, was literally being affirmed in front of, like, freaking the whole world. You know what I mean? Like, honestly. I have to say it again, and I'm not going to fear the redundancy of... Like, you saved me a lot of times, and really, honestly, and there have been very, moments where even you've texted me, and I've sometimes I even came back to you later to been like, hey, it took me a long time to text you back, but it was because, like, it hit the nail on the head so much, or like it was really like spirit and life in that moment. I was kind of talking to Jessica Bradley about it earlier today, and actually, I was literally telling her because, like, I've been battling, just trying to figure out how to share my story, Jocelyn, because, like, there's just been this, like, sort of like how this sort of like this conversation, all right? the way this conversation happened right now was like so divine and synchronized that I can't ignore it. All right, I just can't ignore it. I literally before I even texted you back, this is how no bullshit is. I'm gonna screenshot it and send it to you. Literally before I texted you back, watch this. I sent Jessica an email. Like, that's how fucking wild it was. And she texted me back and she said, no way. I literally sent her a screenshot of your text message because like we had talked about divine synchronicity and we had talked about just some things about that. And she had told me how like one day that she was driving or something and she literally got to work and she saw my email and it was like that. And I was like, literally, I just had that moment when I got off the phone with her, like literally. And so I don't know, I guess I've been noticing that the spirit is leading me back to like Miami. And that's where like the whole thing happened with the abuse. That's where like my brother still lives. That's where my mom still lives. That's where like I think deep inside, if I'm going to be like really vulnerable and honest with you, Jocelyn, tell you like I probably moved to Ireland and just wanted to get like halfway across the world to get away from that place and to get away from all the memories.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so like
that was me in Mexico. I understand.
You know, and I just been seeing I've been seeing a lot of signs. I won't go into all the signs, but if you can understand, I've been seeing so many signs of Miami. Just so many. Like it's just been like now I'm at the point where I'm just like rolling my eyes. Like I'm just like, okay, yeah, we're going to fucking Miami. I get it.
Yeah, you're like, I get it.
I'm like, listen, I get it. But at the same time, I guess, and I was saying it to Jessica, like, oh, and that's why you had to call, that's why I had to talk to you, because like I don't know, your strength has really inspired me. I won't pretend, and I'm just gonna come out, and I'm not gonna mince my words. I'm just gonna say it. Like you're a really strong person. You're really like no bullshit about your boundaries. I actually had another podcast I was talking to you about. I had another podcast where you're mentioned, and I was talking about you to someone else. One of the girls that I met at Sapria named Madeline, her and I sat down and had a conversation, and I was talking about you, and I was talking about how like no bullshit you are with your boundaries and how like helpful it was, like, you know, just even learning from you and understanding like the way you operate and things like that. But like, you know, I guess like I don't know, am I in advance attributing shame to myself? But I suppose I shared with somebody recently the story of my brother and having him arrested and then also letting him go. And then when I got to the point about him, like me dropping the case, like I could sort of like see their face and their disappointment. And it was just like almost to the point where it's like, I'm supposed to, like, I don't want to feel bad about letting him go, but it's like, I couldn't live like that every day and it wasn't fucking working. You know, like what
right.
I want, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't know how to, I guess I just don't know how to talk about that. I don't know how to explain that, where I suppose I did tell her, you know, I went on this road trip and I explained it to Jessica. Like this whole road trip was actually kind of, again, I'll go back to you. Actually, it's interesting. This goes back to you, Jocelyn. I wouldn't have doggone gone to that retreat had it not been for you and the group. Everybody in group all the time talking about it and how great it was. I don't know, do you remember, but for the longest time I didn't go, and personally I felt like I didn't need to go. That's where I was at. I was like, they can go, I don't need to go. But like, geez, I mean, it was for you. It was from you. You really did inspire me a lot and made me feel comfortable. And I told that to Jessica. I was like, I had been doing group for like maybe 18 to 24 months before I even went to retreat. Like, that's just what that's where I was at. And so like, I don't know, I guess
I do remember you telling me that you were just like you were like, oh, that sounds really nice, I just don't know if that's for me.
Yeah. That's how I felt. You know, and so I'm like, I just, you know, I didn't part of me has always wanted to run away from this. You know, so now I'm kind of like at this point where spirit has me confronting it head on and doing it doggone like actually quite publicly. And so it's like this whole question of, you know, I suppose like how to make people understand, like, you know, I guess for me, having him arrested, I was mostly motivated by. I'm getting ahead, so let's go back. And being like, it's not that I just decided to rape you, it's just that I'm deep inside a super jealous, horrible person or whatever. I'm not trying to judge him, but that's like whatever. That's basically what he said. Like,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So, so now fast forward to like where I'm at again with the baby and everything. I'm now like working from home. I'm sitting at work from home, nursing my baby, doing that, and kind of listening to this in the background, with regards to the seriousness of it, and also seeing the way that I'm being treated, and things like that. And I guess I spent a lot of time thinking about it, because then like I have these weird conversations with my brother where I can tell he's now jealous of me having a baby. And I'm not trying to judge him, but I can tell by the look in his eyes. I just know him. I know the way he is. It's that same, like, I wanted to break you because I don't have you what you have sort of look that he has sometimes. And it's like, I could tell it. And then the one and only time I met his wife, they come, like, to my house, and she, like, wants to touch my stomach. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't, like, I'm, like, 9 months pregnant. And, like, it's just weird. There's some weird things happened. Like, and so then all of a sudden, now, like a year later, she's pregnant and she's having a baby. And now it's like everything has to be, it's like the fucking Philip show. He wants,
gotcha.
You know what I mean? So, so he's having that experience. I'm not living in Miami. I'm in Orlando. Mostly because I just couldn't. And so I'm in Orlando, and his wife ends up giving birth. I'm usually kind of like connecting with my mom vicariously, kind of like to find out about the baby, like through her. So she'll be like, oh, this is happening or that's happening. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell the lady, this or whatever. Or like sometimes me and my brother's like wife would like send text messages. Like I would message her. Like I would talk to her. I wouldn't talk to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would.
Because she doesn't know about any of this.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
She knows nothing because he told me that he wasn't going to tell her. So I know she knows nothing, and I'm not trying to like hurt her feelings and have her think that like she's done something to offend me or whatever. So I'm like friendly enough with her. And I then I don't know, she's getting like full in her pregnancy, and I obviously understand it. I literally just came out of one like a year before that, so I'm like not heavy texting her. I would just kind of like mostly message through my mom, and my mom would be telling me, especially towards the end, what was happening, because she was having like a harder time. And so then my mom tells me, the baby's born. I send a congratulations through my mom, to say, oh, tell them, like, or tell the wife, like whatever, like, congratulations, whatever. And I don't think anything of it, and I just kind of like keep going. And then I get this text message from my brother, and it's like super nasty, and it's super like why the fuck didn't you call me and like celebrate my baby being born, basically. And now I'm kind of like being able to heal. Now we're in like 2021, and I've been able to kind of like start to process the reality of like a lot of the trauma that I've suffered, and like that it's not my fault, and that I don't have to like like freaking bow down to them the way that I was kind of like my brain was trained to be,
Yeah.
And I'm just says to him, I'm like stop bloody pretending that we have a normal relationship. I'm like, you abused me, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, stop texting me
Good
before
for
I get
you.
pissed off,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of like, this is the first time now, so I guess this is like the fourth time this is the fourth time it becomes a conversation, and I said it to him, and then so he's now engaging with me in a text message conversation on WhatsApp, where now we're going right back to the how many times thing.
Oh gosh.
And so we go back to the how many times thing, and it gets to, okay, fine, shorty, we'll agree at like 60 or some shit. Like we're gonna you say hundreds, I say tens. We'll we're gonna how about we just like mitigate, and we'll just chop it in half. That's what he said. God. That's how he comes at me with it. And I don't know how many months go by, but I think then like by the time I then get to Atlanta and I start to kind of like really I start to really realize how like shitty my life had become at that time, and how like I was just really like a walking trauma response. because of not addressing it, and also because of like him, and also feeling like everybody in the family was supporting him, and like they had all these events where it's like, you know, like Nanette comes in and sees the baby, and all these people are doing all these things with the baby, where Sarah, like the whole time I was living in Orlando, you know, it's not a long drive, nobody has met my child.
Are you serious?
No joke, no lie. Like my mom like literally didn't meet my baby until she was like 3, I think.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I'm like pissed off, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like pissed off, God of War pissed off, honestly. And
Oh my God.
an interesting parlay to my road trip story is that I end up having a conversation with an astrologer who literally sees this period of time in my life and is able to see it in the stars. And I was like, whoa, that's mind blowing. But like, this is what's happening at the time. Like, apparently the stars aligned. I was pissed. I was hella pissed, and I was in a moment where I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I've been listening to this one in the background talk to me about how like he could be arrested, and like I'm getting zero respect. Like, how about you do get arrested? How about you stop with your bullshit? And so like I take these text messages and all of his admission of guilt, and and I bring it to the state of Florida, and they arrest him.
Wow.
For this. And to be honest with you, Sarah, like really my main thing was the straw that broke the camel's back for me was the kid thing, because I had this really graphic sort of flashback where I remember myself as a child in like this church location, and I know I was there because I was wearing like this sheep mask, and it's like there's this like, we all have sheep have gone astray, like I must be in some sort of play. I try not to think about it too much because I probably don't really want to remember it, but like I have this sort of flashback, right? And then I start to look at my brother on the internet, and then I start to see that my brother is like super involved with children, and is like part of all of these organizations where he's like takes over a middle school for the day, and he's like, oh yeah, you see how you said it straight away. And
well, when you said he had a baby, I was like, did he have a girl? Like, I was like, I'm scared for this child.
So that's how I felt. And also I felt really concerned when I actually started seeing him, in all honesty, around a lot of boys. And when I was at this, I had this, so I'll tell you this other thing that happened. And it's these coincidences that aren't coincidences, synchronicities, whatever. So this is now before I moved to Atlanta. I'm still living in Orlando with my ex-wife. I go on a recon trip with a friend that I made who's also my handyman. So me and my handyman come to Atlanta on a reconnaissance trip because I'm looking at a house that I might buy, and he's a handy guy, so I'm like, look at this house with me, see, is this a solid purchase? That's the point of our trip. That's what we do. While we are in line at security on the way home, he turns to me, Sarah, and basically starts telling me that he's like abused as a child by his brother, who's now transitioned to become a sister, and then starts to give me really graphic details that resonated with me, and also in all honesty sounded a little bit like a lot worse. Like it was just very aggressive. It was very aggressive abuse from his sibling, in the same sort of context that I was abused in. And like he just opens his mouth, like we weren't talking about this at all, and he just opened his mouth and just said that to me, and I was just like blown away, because I was like, number one, the strength of a man to say that.
Exactly, yeah.
Number one, and number two, like for you to like I guess you were prompted obviously by the spirit. Like we had been talking about like spiritual things and stuff like that, but just not about like sexual abuse, and so he, that he felt spiritually prompted to open to me. And I said, dude, maybe I'm like the only person that like in your life you could say that to, because like when you're telling me your memories, I'm just like reliving mine. I'm like, boop, yep, that happened, yep, that happened, yep, that happened, yep, that happened, and I'm thinking about all these things. So fast forward to this now, Sarah. I'm kind of like looking at my life like a piece of a pie, and I'm thinking about all these puzzle pieces put together. And I'm thinking about this conversation I had with this guy where it's like his brother was doing it to him. I'm looking at these pictures of my brother on the internet where he's hanging around. He's like part of 5,000 Black Men, where he's like, quote unquote, like a mentor to young boys. I'm like seeing him always like coaching, and I'm remembering conversations that I had with him where he's like talking to me in great detail about certain boys in his school. And I'm kind of like getting a little bit concerned that maybe he's like a low-key hardcore sexual predator.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he did admit to like some really like, I'm like 200, right? When this guy said 200,
I was like 200 women. Like, what?
When he said 200, I'm feeling like, are we overestimating? Even if we're over or underestimating, what are we at? At best, 50? At best, if we're gonna, at best 50, at worst thousands is where I'm at with this guy, because like he came and visited me once in Europe, basically because my mom guilted him to, and made him come because he was going to go see some other chick in another European country, and she's like, you have to go see your sister. Here this guy comes, he's like walking through the streets of Dublin with like a it would be like one of those guys with the COVID masks, how they wear them where you can only see their eyes, but like before COVID.
Oh God.
And you know how big?
That's not weird at all.
You know how big and imposing he is? And I'm like, imagine this guy in the streets at nighttime, boom, pulls you over, boom, 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 whatever. And like, what are you gonna do? Hey, some big... I'm like, you're actually like a walking, talking stereotype. Like, I don't wanna imagine and create in reality what I think could be honestly happening right now. And so like all these things are coming together at the same time. I'm having all these graphic sort of memories. I'm feeling a lot of resentment because I'm like, why would I be protecting this person who like has fucked me over and basically has everybody in my family turned against me, and is now okay, now here we are, Sarah. Okay, he spent years working as a on a university campus as a like professor. Then he goes and he's like sells tickets, and he's like traveling the world as a ticket agent and selling tickets. Then he comes back and he's working on another university campus. And then he's like, I'm going to become a realtor. And now he's working as a realtor, but his office is inside of a mega church that also has a school.
Oh, gosh. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that's where I'm at. And so here I am with my baby, nursing my baby, thinking, what about these babies? And and how can I sleep at night knowing that, like, maybe I'm the only person who can stop this from happening because everybody else seems to be fucking stupid. So then, I prosecuted, and then he's arrested.
Good.
So here we are. So here's the part. So months go by, we go through the process, which is honestly re-traumatizing because we want to go through, like, a lot of, like, very graphic details all the time.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things that came out of it was I got a victim advocate who, her name is Caroline. She was honestly just so helpful. She helped me with a lot because I just didn't have the tools. Like, I just didn't understand, like, even some of the things that you're saying back to me. You're like, wow, even the trauma of them not supporting you. Like, I just didn't even have, like, I didn't even have the ability to recognize that. Like, I had been so, like, in the ground that I'm like, oh, this is what air is like. This is different.
Yeah.
This is what it's like to breathe. Like, you know? And so, like, I got hooked up with a group called Supriya, who they basically help adult female, like, people who are born as female, identified as female, the people who were, like, victims of child sexual abuse. They give, like, free resources. They have, like, a free sort of like groups that you can join, and also they give you a free 4-day retreat where it's like literally like a hotel, like, next level retreat experience, but it's also like clinical, where so they teach you a lot of things, a lot of, like, you know, just like the language, and to understand shame, and to understand how to move through and past all of these kind of like deep traumatic things, you know?
Yeah.
So I get hooked up with them, and then I kind of go through the process. I'm at the same time, like, kind of being harassed a little bit by my family. My grandmother died when we were together. I don't know, did you ever meet her sister? But she had this sister named Aunt Rosetta, who ended up...
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, I don't think... Because I remember I only met her once, I think, and, like, during the time where I knew you, and, like, I don't think you met her, but... she ended up getting COVID real bad, and we ended up reconnecting on the phone around the same time that I was, like, living in Orlando, and I was kind of just mommying and working. And so, like, I would mommy and I would work, and, like, kind of like walk down the street and talk to her, because she's, like, in her 90s, and, you know, she likes enjoying the company, and I like enjoying the company, and we just kind of bonded, and I would, like, read to her, and, like, we just had, like, a good relationship or whatever. apparently my mother's brother, my uncle, had a good relationship with her before the arrest, and after, she was also alienated because she talked to me.
Got you.
It was like that big of a deal in the family, where it was just a massive like rift that was created. And so she would, she loved me, and was honestly a real big support and love to me, and I to her. Like, I would go and visit her in Boston and whatever, but she was honest. Like, her and I were just honest together. Like, I'm talking to you, like, there's no reason to lie, you know what I mean? Like, so she would just be like, yeah, they were really lovely, and now they told me they can't talk to me because I talk to you.
It's just, how horrible is it that, your family would want to protect someone who's actually dangerous, who harmed you for such a long period of time? Like, I just can't understand that thought process. I don't get it. Like, I just don't understand. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe it's one of those thought processes you shouldn't understand.
Do you know what the thing is? Is actually, I learned, it helped me so much, because I felt like that for so long. Excuse me. It's allergy season here too. I felt like that for so long, Sarah, and one of the things that helped me so much, that empowered me so much, was learning from Cypria that is so common. It's basically every single person. Like, I did go on this retreat, and when I got on the retreat, every single person had that same story. Literally everybody has that same exact story that I told you, where it's like they get embraced first, and maybe it lasts a day, 2 days, a week, maybe a month, if you're lucky. It every time comes full circle, even for people who were dead. Like, somebody shared with me a story where it's like their grandfather abused them. They end up telling the mother, they have the little period, and then it's like, well, you just wanted to ruin my father's memory, and this didn't really happen, and they just full circle come back, still very like, it's just a psychological thing, it's a human thing, and I think that's why that's why I asked you to speak with me, and I appreciated you talking to me, because I feel like my calling in this is to actually open up the conversation. I think it's important that, like, had I maybe known this then, I would be a different person. Like, had I known this when we were together, for example, I wouldn't have maybe treated you in those ways that I had to realize when my mom was acting wild in front of me. I would have been able to recognize it. And I think there's a lot of power in just speaking about it and understanding that, like, you're not alone, and like that these things are unfortunately common. Like, for example, the handyman, he's unreported. So they say the reported numbers are 1 in 6 men are victims of child sexual abuse. So he's definitely unreported. How many of his friends do we know that are unreported? How many people do we know that are unreported? And it's like, because we don't talk about it, we don't realize how common it is and how much is happening.
It's so common. As you're talking me through this, it's making me think about all of the relationships I've had, and I can only think of one other person I've been in a romantic relationship that wasn't a victim of childhood assault. So
wow. I
have, like, a lot of people in my life who've had very similar experiences, and none of them have reported. So
whoa.
I think it's very valuable to tell this story so people have the courage, and understanding that they're not alone, and, because you're right, the experience has typically the same, and from what I've understood, right, you get that initial support, like you said, but then people turn their back on you. Your family, the people who are supposed to love you and value you the most, end up turning their back on you, which is just such a horrible, I can't even imagine. So I think you telling your story it's needed, and I think it's beautiful that you're sharing and that you're allowing yourself to be this vulnerable. I think you're going to touch people, and you're going to inspire them to heal and to come forward and to go on their own journey of just, like, finding that peace that I think so many people are lacking.
Podcasting and talking about, like, all of these conversations that we're having, and one of the things I didn't share with you is that, like, recently I've started this project where I'm going to be talking a lot about suicide, because I had gone through another breakup and had been feeling kind of really low and sort of like just looking at my life and feeling honestly a little bit suicidal and dealing with that. And I kind of came to this realization, this sort of human realization, where I was like, wait, hang on. Too many of these things are, like, lined up. Like our Earth and our planet, and, like, things that even happen, and, like, these quote-unquote coincidences that I explained to you and all that kind of stuff. And, like, this consciousness, this idea, I want to say it was probably a divine inspiration came across my mind, which is, like, what if you shot yourself in the head and then like instantly you woke up a new baby in like Mongolia. Or in like, I don't know, Indonesia, or some like eighth in line in like East Africa, or like, I don't know, some other sort of much more economically difficult, quote unquote, experience. Like what if like it's too easy. I feel like it's a trick. I feel like suicide is a trick. Like it's too easy.
I agree. It's too easy.
You know what I mean? It's too easy. Like it's not gonna work. And that's where I landed.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I'll tell you about my thoughts on suicide is for years and years and years, I was, very suicidal. Like it was a part of my life for, I would say, the majority of my adolescence into my adulthood. And I would say up until my diagnosis, like when somebody tells you that you have 15 months to live, I think it changes, right? So my thoughts on suicide are, I don't know. I don't have those thoughts anymore because it's just like, why? Is it worth it? Because I don't know. When somebody tells you you can't live, all of a sudden you really want to. And it's just, I don't know. So it's like, it was just a split, like complete, like 180 or in my mind because I was so suicidal for so long, but those thoughts have never re-entered my mind since that day.
So I love hearing you say that, like, you felt suicidal until they tell you can't live, because it's like, you're true, like you said. You always want what you can't have.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's absolutely true. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's, of course, like, I mean, you have your ups and downs. Life is hard, right? Like, I really think of life as an emotional abuse, just constant process. I don't know. But, like, I have my times where I'm super, super sad still. And, I don't know. There's times where I'm just like, ugh. Like, I wish I could just, like, I don't know, fall asleep and just, like, not wake up and I'll have those thoughts for a moment. But then I realize, like, it's not worth it. Like, outside of the really bad times, there's still so many beautiful moments to live for. And there's so many things that I haven't had a chance to do. Like, be a mom, Like, there's so many things to live for. So even when it's bad, there's always something worth living for. You just gotta, like, search for it, pray for it. God will show it to you.
That's true. I like that. I liked it a lot. So, so I have to tell you about that. Alright. So then I got led to McDonald's. My stomach just growled. You probably didn't hear it, but I don't eat McDonald's. You could hear it?
No, I didn't hear it.
Let's be like, well, what was I gonna say to you? So I got to Atlanta here. So now, like, things with my marriage are kind of like going to shit as well. And I'm also, through the victim advocate hooking me up with Supriya, I'm also understanding that that's very normal. I get into a conversation where my spouse at the time has me talk to, like, a high level sort of, like, therapist where literally all he does is people who are, like, victims of childhood sexual abuse, and it has to do with incest. Like, that's literally all day, every day what he does. And so I have this conversation with him and the beautiful Dr. David, and he basically explains to me that, like, a lot of times when people come to these realizations that, like, their marriages end, and that's, like, not, like, crazy for, like, you to feel that way. And I find it funny because this is the message that comes from the person who my spouse asks me to speak to.
Like, damn.
So, you know what I mean? So I can't, it's like the universe is like, there's so many things that are going on. There's just so many things that are going on. But at the same time, I'm really, really strong. Like, I mentioned the suicidal thing is because, like, I find that out of these, like, really, really low moments, Sarah, like, each time comes something beautiful. And, like, I was experiencing, for example, like, some low moments, and I felt led, I think, one morning to just go to this McDonald's, and I don't eat McDonald's. I was like, whatever. I just felt led by the Spirit to go, so I was obedient, and I went. And here I walk into McDonald's, and they're, like, fighting, and everything is, like, a whole brawl. I did this podcast about it where I talk about, like, why I changed my name. And the name change does become inspired by that, because I sat down and I had this conversation with this girl where I literally said to her what you just said to me right now, where it's like, you know, I know a little bit of your background, obviously, because we had an intimate relationship in the past, but it's like, you don't always have to have that. Like, you can just say to somebody, listen, man, like, I've been going through a lot, you know, like, I kind of shared with her a little bit about my brother. I was like, listen, like, you know, she shared with me, like, some people, like, some things that had happened to her as well, and, like, that basically, like, her mom had just died and her grandma had just died, and that, like, she was just, like, 19, out there, raw, all alone, you know, kind of feeling like that. And you know, I just kind of encouraged her. And then after that, I ended up going to get like a smoothie or whatever, like a shake for her and the lady that she was honestly like fighting with, because I just wanted them to like have a better experience and just give to them a better day, because I learned after the fire that I got a lot of joy from giving. After the fire, I kind of felt like really low, and I went to this like, I was part of this honor society, and I went to this like speech where this lady was basically talking all these things that bad that happened to her, and she was like, basically like, say, you know, her spouse dies, her children die, all her money's gone, like she's like stripped gone, like she's like whatever. And I was basically like, it really resonated with me because that's how I felt at the time. I was like, I don't have my relationship and I don't have anything and I'm fucking here living with my brother. Like I was feeling a lot of ways, you know. And so she says, you know, go and give back. She said the first time she found joy was at a soup kitchen, and it really inspired me then to go and start working at the homeless youth shelter. And so I did, and I was around the kids, and I love kids, and so it was like, it really kind of got a lot of joy back in my life. And so when I found myself again in 2022 feeling really low, and everything that had kind of come to a head with the arrest and my brother and all that family stuff was going on, blah blah blah, I thought, okay, well, let me go back to what worked before, and I'm going to start giving things away. So at that time when I met her, I had kind of been like starting my journey of like just giving things away in Atlanta and starting like Keep Atlanta Kind and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, like God just had spoken to me like that my name was going to change, and I ended up having that inspiration from that day, and I kind of kept using it like as a joke, and then it sort of like kind of stuck with me, like, yeah, that is my name, like this is who I am. Like I'm not that sad person from before. I'm not like that walking trauma response where I can't open my mouth and say, hey, what you did hurt me, instead of like screaming and yelling and throwing fucking plates around and acting wild, you know. Like we can just you can just, you know, be calm and, you know, give yourself the permission to have agency and all that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's a new leaf. But I then ended up moving out from the relationship I was in. Like we separated, I moved in, I got my new apartment, and here I am once again, like quite regularly, sort of giving information to the, you know, the prosecution about my brother and things like that. And we get to the point where he's been now in jail, like at the Miami prison, for maybe like 45 days or something, or 50 days. And he has an arraignment where not an arraignment, I'm not sure the name of it, but he has this court date. Now everything's on Zoom and all that kind of stuff, so he's in the court, and they're basically gonna put him on house arrest, and they're talking about the terms of the house arrest. Now before that, I had put together all this information. I kind of shared with them, like I had all of these, like, you know, I just had so much like kind of like information and evidence that I gave to them, you know, like that it should have been easy to say, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't let him go to church or to have his office at the school. But what happened was that he was put on house arrest, and he was allowed to also go to church and to work, and he works at the school. And then I was explained that this was going to be like a really long process, and it could go on for years. And so I'm like, what in the flying, excuse my language, but what in the flying fuck? So I go through all of this. I'm alienated from my family, all these things, and y'all still have him with these babies.
Yeah.
And I had this video where I saw them on, I was really kind of feeling suspicious for a few reasons. One of them was, honestly, like there was this text message where my ex-spouse, you know, I guess she was feeling frustrated about what you said, you know, kind of like the lack of the family support. And I was just kind of feeling really low one night, and, you know, she just sent this text message to them, which was basically like, he did all this stuff and you guys are protecting them, and like, what about her, and she was honestly like trying to defend me, and she sent it to like everybody, like my little brother, my little sister,
oh my goodness,
his wife, like it went to like a family network of people who did know and people who didn't know, and it was very graphic about what happened.
Gotcha.
So there was definitely a backlash, from that then I think then shortly after that he was arrested. Maybe like I think it was in July he got arrested, that she sent that message in May, and so then in July he's arrested. Then we have, he's there, and then they like have him on house arrest for a while. But it was weird because I think like just maybe the next day after that message goes out, that text message, he's like hanging out with his pastor from his mega church, and then they end up flying out to Texas, and then you see him on Instagram shaking hands with Joel Osteen, and it's kind of like this weird sort of thing that happens where it's like, okay, what are we like? Are you just like giving a middle finger to everybody? Or are you telling me that like everybody's in on it? I'm not understanding what's happening. And then at the same time, I look at the church's Instagram, and I have like, I see honestly affluent people giving out free food and having a church full of beautiful brown skinned people that are impoverished, and their school is full of them, and the ladies are basically bragging about how difficult it is to pick up the children, and they're like, yeah, this school is so safe because when you get to the front door it takes a full 5 minutes before I even get my kid. And I'm thinking about my accounts to the prosecutors where they're asking like, okay, well, if your mom was home, how did it happen? And I'm like thinking about how, they would hear the garage door, and it's like you get like 30 to 45 seconds, and that is really a lot of time to pretend you're doing something else. Nevertheless, 5 minutes. And sure, maybe I'm being overly skeptical to it, but I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me knowing his personality. Like, I don't understand why we're running our realtor firm from a church school and all these kind of things. And it just doesn't sit right with me. And so I told the prosecutor after months of just like realizing that like it wasn't going to change, and we basically just went right back to normal. I was like, I'm just actually going to drop the case and I'm going to talk about this publicly instead. Like, I just feel like I get that nothing against the prosecutor, nothing against them at all, because it's not their fault, but it's just the way that the jury, just like the way that the whole process worked out, it just didn't save anybody. And for me, it doesn't help me. Like, I don't need him in jail in order for me to feel better. Like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? I just don't want him around them children. And so it's like, okay, we're still around the children. I don't feel comfortable about it. Same way.
Because obviously your like defining moment was thinking about the children.
Oh my God! You know what? I just realized it talking to you now, Sarah. And I have to say to you, thank you for this. But you said it in the beginning. You said this thing in the beginning. You said, I don't know what it is. I don't know how I could put my finger on it. But I just had, and this before I told you anything about him. You said I just had this feeling I wasn't comfortable around him. This intuition sort of feeling. You mentioned that in the very, very, very beginning of our conversation. And I suppose that's what it was. That was my impetus. And that's how I still feel right now, even in this, is like, I don't feel comfortable with him around those children. I just have this, I can't prove it. I have this intuition feeling like he's not that guy. He's not that guy. He's a guy who tells me that he's out here raping women at nighttime, like in the past.
Exactly.
Thank God he doesn't do that anymore. But like that's what he was doing before. I just don't feel like we're that guy. Like I just don't. It doesn't sit right with me. I don't like it as a mother. When I looked at it at the time when I was bored and it was COVID and I was sitting there on the internet doing nothing but nursing my baby and being on Instagram, and I saw the way that he was, and I saw the way he was living his life and the things that he was showing me, it just didn't sit right with me. It didn't sit right with me seeing him around those children. And I didn't like it. And I still don't like it. I still don't like it. So, yeah. But, yeah. That's everything. I suppose I wanted to say that to you. I wanted to tell you that. I suppose I'm telling you that and everybody else at the same time. But I also kind of feel like a respect for you, like, is owed to you. Like, I'd hate for you to hear it from somebody else. Like, what? That's crazy. I just feel like that's how I feel about that.
That is, I mean, I wasn't expecting all of that out of this conversation. I mean, that was a lot. I mean, I don't even know what to say. That was just a lot of information. I guess what's sitting with me is I'm just proud of you. I'm proud that you're led on this journey and that you're gaining your healing through, advocating for yourself and others. And I'm just proud of you because it takes a lot of courage.
You know what? That's what it was. That's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you for saying that. And now I remember the story I wanted to tell you about Anne. So we had this conversation the other day about podcasting, and I started talking about the cemetery. Because she was kind of saying to me, she was like, I'm kind of protective in the sense of like, you put things out there and then people assume they know you and then they want to come up to you and start talking to you. And we kind of started talking about like, just the real life, everyday practicalities of it,
Yeah.
And I started off to say to you I had been really low. And I kind of, from that lowness, I had been experiencing a lot of divine connections and a lot of divine synchronicities where I meet other people who tell me they feel the exact same way.
Gotcha.
I'll send it to you later, but I post this little thing on Instagram where literally, last week today, I met these people on the Beltline where 3 of us were led by God together, where we all 3 woke up feeling the exact same way, and we were able to connect on it, and we literally actually ended up standing out there praying together, like literally. Like it was wild the way it all came together. Because I felt led to give out free bread on the Beltline. She felt led to give out free water, and we were out there giving out free water and bread together. Like, it was crazy.
That's awesome.
Literally. So like I say that to say like, Anne asks me this question, and she's kind of like, to be like, how willing are you like for this? And I looked out of my window, and like I said, I look out at the cemetery. And I was just kind of like a little bit ballsy in the sense of like, it's like you said before, like you can feel suicidal until somebody tells you you have 15 months to live. I can feel suicidal until I feel like, you know what, man, I'll be honest with you. The only thing that's for me worth living, I've lived a lot of lives. Like I told you, I just put my head down. I made money that made me happy. It didn't really make me happy though, because I found myself, if I'm gonna really look at it, I was also doing a lot of drinking and doing a lot of like opium and other things that like weren't really healthy. So it's like, I have to die every day. But the cemetery, and I think I died to myself, I died to the ego, I died to that, and like that's the only thing for me, honestly, Sarah, worth living for. Like, it's just not worth it for me. It's just not worth it for me if I'm not out here doing something impactful and I can't like somehow make a daggone difference. Otherwise, like, I just don't feel like there's point to it.
It's like, what's the point?
That's how I feel. So while I do appreciate you saying to me, like, I'm proud of you, and I appreciate you saying that for sure, I suppose the only thing I have to take proud of myself is just to be able to stand up and say, like, hey, man, like, I'm not a victim. Like, this is my story, and, like, I'm not wrong for telling it, because I think that's why I keep saying to you, I appreciate you letting me tell you the story, because, like, for so long, I was trapped, and the way that I acted even in our relationship was because I wasn't able to be healed enough to even open my mouth and tell you that story.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing it with me. I really do.
Yeah. I appreciate you listening.
Of course. I'm glad I could listen. Like I told you, anytime you need an ear to listen, I am here.
Well, you've made it to the end of the episode, so that's good. Thank you. I suppose I have to say thank you again, and I think it's important to be intentional, and so that was kind of heavy. It's important that you hold space for that. If it rouses any, like, if it brings up any feelings inside of you, if the story resonates with you, I said in the last episode I wish I didn't have to tell you this story, and I do. I wish I didn't have to, but it's my story. It's true. It's what happened, and it's Frank's mom's story. It's my handyman's story. It's a lot of people. It's Apriya's story. It's everybody that they help's story. It's just a lot of us. So, if you know somebody who, like, if you or somebody you know has been impacted by this episode and you need further support, I do really encourage you to look at the resources that Apriya has. Jessica Bradley, who was briefly featured on our last episode and who you're going to hear from definitely in the future episodes. She leads a webinar that's very helpful, and you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to go anywhere. Nobody has to see your face. You can just get help, and you can get some of these tools that I didn't have. you can get them yourself, or you can get them for somebody who you love, who you think maybe needs them. But not talking about it isn't gonna make it go away. It just comes up in the most inconvenient times and places and ways and stays. So, talk to somebody, that'll help you. And, just speak blessings over you and over your mind and over your body. I'm strong. I think it's important that, I think it's important to end this episode with, some affirmations or something. Maybe something simple like, I'm strong, I'm recognizing that I'm healing, and I approve of myself. Yeah, I like that. Alright, we're gonna go with that. You guys have, you people, you beautiful people, all of you people's souls. I enjoy all of you, and I hope that, I hope you enjoyed this too, for whatever, enjoyment can be from this sort of thing, but it's good. We gotta get it out there. We gotta talk about it, so we did, and we will, and we'll continue to heal, and I honor my past, but I don't, live every day dwelling in it. I think because I didn't address it, I lived under it somehow. And so now that I've addressed it, I can just kind of, put it down and walk away. And so, I don't know. I'm healing. I'm still working on it. I'm not trying to say to you I'm some sort of perfect person, because I'm not. That's the whole point. I'm working on it all the time, but I'm just telling you what I'm doing. This is how it works. This is what's been working for me. I'm telling you what's working for me. That's where I'm at. And so, listen, I hope this encourages you or inspires you or helps you somehow. Maybe, if this is your story, then you're not alone, because I know that was important for me. And, there's help out there as well. And it's important to know that there's good things still out there. And there's people out there who love you. And I love you. And good night, and good morning, and good afternoon. This is Kindness Calloway, and this has been Loving Kindness Every Day. Thank you for listening, and be sure to give us lots of positive feedback on the internet, subscribe and all that good stuff, alright? Thanks. Bye now. Bye-bye.